My favorite meal.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's been a long, long journey.
That's right.
I'm bruised and I'm battered, I'm bloody. It's been a long time since I've shaved with a normal razor, and it takes a little practice. I'm sorry about that. I gotta keep dabbing the blood.
So I have to apologize for his tardiness. He couldn't find where I put his socks this morning.
Lots changed in the nearly 8 years that I've been here.
Former Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich speaking in front of the cameras, declaring himself a freed political prisoner. This as President Trump defends his decision to grant clemency to the former Celebrity Apprentice contestant, saying he has paid a big price. Billionaire and former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg is set to join the debate stage for the first time. He's already spent hundreds of millions of dollars and has been over his nearest competitor. And there's now a third suspect, just 14 years old, in the horrific murder of a New York college student. The alleged killer is also only 14. Both have been charged as adults and have pleaded not guilty. Good evening. I'm Diane Macedo in for Lindsay Davis. Thanks for streaming with us. We begin tonight with the fallout after President Trump's surprise pardons and commutations of several white-collar criminals. Disgraced ex-governor Rod Blagojevich used his first full day of freedom to thank the president, saying he was persecuted for trying to help people. ABC's Jonathan Karl leads us off from the White House.
Out of prison thanks to President Trump, disgraced former Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich emerged from his home in Chicago this morning, celebrating his newfound freedom with no remorse for his crimes.
I'm returning home today from a long exile, a freed political prisoner.
He had served 8 years of a 14-year sentence for trying to sell Barack Obama's Senate seat. His scheme caught on a federal wiretap.
I mean, I've got this thing, and it's golden. And I'm just not giving it up. Nothing.
His wife had made a direct appeal to President Trump in repeated appearances on Fox News.
The president's about justice and fairness.
The president was listening.
We want to again express our deepest gratitude to President Trump. I'm a Trumpocrat. If I have the ability to vote, I'm going to vote for him.
Blagojevich was one of several people granted clemency by President Trump yesterday at the urging of friends and supporters. Among those pardoned, construction company owner Paul Pogue, who pleaded guilty to filing a false tax return. He and his family had donated more than $200,000 to the president's re-election campaign and the Republican Party.
And Jonathan Karl joins us live from the White House now. Jonathan, the Blagojevich pardon comes as the president continues to defy warnings from Attorney General William Barr to stop tweeting about the Justice Department. Earlier, we heard that Barr was considering stepping down, and now a denial from the Justice Department. What are you hearing on your end?
Diane, the bottom line is sources close to Barr say he has been deeply frustrated by the fact that the president continues, especially on Twitter, to attack the Justice Department, to attack prosecutors, to call for individual actions, the kind of things that would raise questions about the Attorney General's independence at a time when he is already under attack along those lines. The Justice Department put out a statement that didn't deny those reports. The statement simply said that the Attorney General does not have any plans to resign. No plans to resign, but we hear the frustration is very real, and he has said it is an option that he has.
Sure. And also, you know, tomorrow is Roger Stone's sentencing. What are your sources telling you about the possibility that the president might have another pardon in store here?
Well, we're told it is clearly something that is under consideration. And if you look at what the president has said publicly, he has repeatedly talked about how he sees that Stone has been mistreated. He has attacked, of course, the prosecutors in the case. He's attacked the judge in the case. He sure seems to be a president that is gearing up for another pardon of a longtime political associate.
All right. Very interesting. Jonathan Karl from the White House. Thanks, Jonathan.
Thanks, Diane.
Julian Assange is making headlines today after reports he was offered a presidential pardon as long as he covered up the Russian hack on the DNC. His lawyer claims his client was told this by former California Congressman Dana Rohrabacher. Rohrabacher put out a statement moments ago admitting he did meet with Assange, saying, quote, "I told him that if he could provide me information and evidence about who actually gave him the DNC emails, I would then call on President Trump to pardon him. At no time did I offer a deal made by the president, nor did I say I was representing the president." The White House also released a statement calling the claims a, quote, "fabrication and total lie." Now to the race for the White House. The big focus is on Nevada tonight. Just days before the caucus, former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg will take the debate stage for the first time in more than a decade. He'll be joined by 5 other candidates, many who have been ratcheting up their attacks on the New York billionaire. ABC's Mary Bruce has more from Las Vegas.
Tonight, for the first time, Michael Bloomberg steps out from behind his $400 million campaign and onto the national debate stage. His rivals waiting.
The working people of this country are tired of a corrupt political system in which billionaires think they can buy elections.
Senator Bernie Sanders is surging in the national polls with a double-digit lead. But Bloomberg is on the rise. Both candidates eager to go after each other tonight. Today, we got a preview. It started when Sanders, who recently suffered a heart attack, was asked if he'll release more medical records.
You think I'm not in good health? Come on out with me on the campaign trail, and I'll let you introduce me to the 3 or 4 rallies a day that we do. How's that?
Just to be clear, you don't plan to release any more records?
I don't think we will, no.
The senator's press secretary then tried to turn the issue on Bloomberg.
It's really telling, given that none of the same concern is being demonstrated for Michael Bloomberg, who's the same age as Bernie Sanders, who has suffered heart attacks in the past.
That's not true, though. Bloomberg has never had a heart attack. His campaign manager called it an absolute lie. And the Sanders aide later acknowledged she, quote, misspoke.
What do we want? Contract!
Tonight, Elizabeth Warren, Pete Buttigieg, and Amy Klobuchar are ready to pounce on Bloomberg's record.
And I'm glad he's up there because he's got to answer questions like the rest of us have been doing for an entire year.
Joe Biden made it clear today he's ready for a fight.
I'm just going to tell the truth. That always works.
What's the truth about Bloomberg?
Truth is he's basically been a Republican his whole life. The fact of the matter is he didn't endorse Barack or me when we ran. This is a guy talking about, he's using Barack's pictures like, they're good buddies.
Fighting words. Mary Bruce joins us live from Las Vegas. Now, Mary, it's Bloomberg's first debate tonight, and it doesn't appear his neighbors on that stage will be going easy on him.
Diane, they are going to pummel him. They know that they simply cannot outspend Michael Bloomberg given his massive war chest here, but they can try to outdebate him. This, of course, is the first time that all of these candidates have been on the stage together, the first time that they will have a chance to go after Michael Bloomberg on his record. As you can see, it's clear that the candidates are gunning for a fight, and Michael Bloomberg is braced for a bludgeoning here, but I'm also told that he plans to punch back too. So this is going to be quite some fireworks here, Diane.
All right, I think regardless, sounds like we're going to have a big night for Bloomberg one way or the other. But are there any other candidates that really need a standout performance tonight?
Yeah, well, look, it's clear that Bernie Sanders and Michael Bloomberg are trying to make this a two-man race. Elizabeth Warren, Amy Klobuchar, Pete Buttigieg are all looking to take them on and to seize the spotlight here tonight. And Joe Biden needs a strong performance. He is looking for a comeback after his disappointing finishes in Iowa and New Hampshire. Diane, he really needs a strong performance here tonight.
All right, Mary Bruce from Las Vegas. Thanks, Mary. And we're going to stay in Nevada and bring in Amanda Renteria, the former national policy director for Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign. Amanda, let's discuss this moderates versus progressive battle. Is this similar to what we saw with Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton in 2016?
It's a little different because I think when you look back to 2016, people were really wondering who the party was, where on that ideological spectrum is the party. Today's big question, and really all throughout this campaign, the question is who can beat Trump and what ideology can beat Trump? Does it actually work to inspire voters, or are we trying to make sure that we bring over moderate voters? And so while it's the same question about ideology, I think the lens is a little bit different for a lot of voters. What you're hearing from the party is who can really beat him? And is that about energy, or is that about bringing the entire tent together? And that's what you're seeing a lot of voters talk about, and why you've seen a lot of shifting from voters or undecideds really in big numbers as we go into these races.
Sure, and as you heard from Mary, there's a lot of backlash against Bloomberg right now. Opponents say he's trying to buy the election, but a lot of the candidates accept big donations and spend millions. So besides it being his own money, is Bloomberg's strategy so different?
It's different in this way, which is not only is he have the resources to go on air, but he also has the resources to go in and buy infrastructure that you really need. And so it's actually quite a smart strategy for somebody that has that much resources. He's using them incredibly well all throughout the Super Tuesday states to really build the organizational structure you need. Now we're going to see tonight whether that translates into being able to connect with voters. This is the first time that folks are going to really see him live, connecting with voters, and even more importantly, in a state where you have communities of color, where he has a really interesting record that he's going to need to speak to tonight.
Well, and talking about people of color, Nevada is a big test for the candidates in terms of diversity. I want you first to listen to this gaffe from Amy Klobuchar as she addressed some members of the Hispanic community.
Let me tell you first about me. My name is Amy, and when I took Spanish in 4th grade, my name was Elena. They gave me the name me llamo Elena because I couldn't roll my R's very, very well, and so it was E-L-E-N-A.
So ABC News also reported on Pete Buttigieg overstating his support from black leaders and public figures. And then you have Bloomberg's history with stop and frisk. Out of all of the candidates, who do you think has the best chance at winning over minority voters?
You know, one of the things that's not talked about enough with communities of color is that it's a real question about trust. Who's been there? What kind of track record have you shown? And what that means is time matters here. And so the fact that Biden has had a relationship with the Latino community and the black community over time, the fact that Bernie has spent time in the last election really building up the base with younger communities of color, that looks like it's going to pay off. And I think we're not only going to see that here, but as we go through each of the states, the fact that there's some track record of actually building that connection, I think is going to prove to be lasting, as opposed to some of the new tactics we're seeing of trying to make a connection, but not quite having the track record or the history where you've been in the community working with folks in a real way.
And looking ahead, we've got Super Tuesday in less than 2 weeks now. Do you think any of these candidates will have a clearer path to the nomination by then?
I think you're going to see them all stick it out through Super Tuesday. And the reason is because when you have so many, folks are looking at the different strategies that they can take in order to win a couple states here or a couple states there. The delegate count is hard. And to the extent that every campaign, and I know they are, is really thinking strategically, they're thinking about what states they can win, where their candidates can really make a connection. And so I don't see it for it to make sense for any of them to actually head out early, because so many of them already put a plan in place for Super Tuesday.
All right, Amanda Renteria, we appreciate the analysis. Thank you. And tonight, 2 teens have been charged in the stabbing death of college student Tessa Majors. The 18-year-old was attacked while walking through a park in Manhattan late last year. ABC's Ariel Reshef has the latest.
Tonight, the teen accused of stabbing and killing Barnard College freshman Tessa Majors pleading not guilty in court. 14-year-old Rashawn Weaver charged as an adult with second-degree murder.
We are confident that we have the person in custody who stabbed her. Sadly, it cannot bring back this young woman.
And 14-year-old Luciano Lewis arrested today after surrendering to the Manhattan DA's office, also charged as an adult, pleading not guilty to second-degree murder and robbery. 18-year-old Majors was fatally stabbed in December in Morningside Park, just blocks from her school. Police say she fought back and managed to stagger up these winding stairs before collapsing. Authorities say they've built a strong case against Weaver, including video evidence, audio recordings where he allegedly talked about hitting Majors with a knife, and DNA recovered from Majors' fingernail. But Weaver's attorney cautioning against any rush to judgment, saying our client is a 14-year-old child with no criminal record or family court history. He should not be charged as an adult.
And Ariel joins us live from the scene where Majors was killed. Ariel, you mentioned that 3 teenagers are believed to be involved in this murder. What do we know about that third suspect?
Well, that third suspect, Diane, is a 13-year-old who was taken into custody just days after Tessa Majors' murder. He has been charged as a juvenile. His case is now being handled in family court. We know that he's made apparently some statements in custody implicating those other 2 teens. All of those teens have court dates coming up in the next few months, Diane.
All right, so sad to see everyone involved in this so young. Ariel Resha for us in New York. Thanks, Ariel. One of the top officials in the Pentagon has resigned at the president's request. John Rood was the Department of Defense's top policy official. He certified to Congress that Ukraine had made enough anti-corruption progress to release congressionally authorized aid. Of course, those funds and how they were released were at the heart of the impeachment case. Rood's resignation letter said he was leaving at the president's request. The president has apparently gone after officials he has perceived as being disloyal, but today the president tweeted thanks to Rood for his service. A federal appeals court in Florida has delivered a blow to Florida's governor, Ron DeSantis, and the state's Republican-controlled legislature. The court ruled that a law limiting the voting rights of people with felony convictions was unconstitutional. The decision in that critical swing state found the state could not deny ex-felons the right to vote just because they can't afford outstanding court fines and fees. A spokesman for the governor reportedly says they will seek a review of the ruling. The decision could potentially impact more than 1 million people in the state. And a bleak report on climate change. Researchers at the University of Hawaii say that by 2100, almost all coral reef habitats worldwide could be gone. Coral reefs are believed by many to have the highest biodiversity on the planet. They provide millions with food. They also protect shorelines from storms and fuel tourism and fishing industries worldwide. And our weather team is tracking a massive storm system blowing snow and creating miserable conditions in Michigan. In Maine, snow caused this crash involving multiple tractor trailers on I-95. But snow isn't the only threat from this storm. In Tennessee, the relentless rain washed out this road, and the concern in the south is that the system will cause even more flooding. At least 2 states have declared states of emergency. Our Rob Marciano is tracking it all.
Hi, Diane. The front that finally has cleared the northeast and brought this colder air in is really causing some problems across the south. It's kind of stalled down there, and the flood zone is getting more in the way of rain, unfortunately. The radar is showing some snow, actually, that's dropping in through parts of the plains. That's the upper level energy that's going to kind of kickstart this stalled front. So more in the way of heavy rain in the morning from eastern Texas through Louisiana. Unfortunately, Jackson, Mississippi, Birmingham, Atlanta, Augusta, Georgia, Charleston, you're all going to get more rain. You don't need it. But then some snow across the Carolinas, Raleigh, over to Norfolk, Virginia Beach. Advisories and winter storm watches are posted. Could see 1 to 3 or 4 inches of snow right for the evening commute. So that's going to be disruptive as folks are ready for the weekend. In the morning, though, here comes the cold air. Minus 18 in Minneapolis for a wind chill. Minus 9 in Des Moines. 7 in Kansas City, and 3 degrees below 0 for a wind chill tomorrow morning in Chicago. And then on Friday, we get the core of the cold air here in the northeast at or below freezing for Boston and Burlington, even 12 degrees in D.C. So a brutally cold start to the weekend and potentially an unusual snow event for parts of the mid-Atlantic we'll be watching tomorrow afternoon and evening. Diane?
All right, Rob, thanks. When we come back, the officer racing to the scene of an accident. The car smashed, flames and smoke spewing out of the sides. See what he did next. A look inside a coronavirus biocontainment unit in the United States. The room hasn't been used since the Ebola outbreak. Meet the husband just off that quarantine cruise ship, now inside. And day 2, and still no verdict in the Weinstein trial. Hear what the jurors asked today. But first, this remarkable image. NASCAR driver Ryan Newman walking out of the hospital with his children by his side. Just days after so many feared the worst. Stay with us.
ABC News, straightforward.
We're looking at some incredible video of a police officer pulling a man to safety after the car he was driving crashed and caught fire. That officer, Jared Houston from Elk Grove, California, is being hailed a hero for these efforts that we're watching. The incident happened earlier this month. The driver was taken to a hospital with injuries not considered life-threatening. The cause of the crash is still under investigation. Day 2 of jury deliberations in the Harvey Weinstein case, and still no verdict. The disgraced movie mogul is facing multiple felony counts, including rape and sexual assault. ABC's Stephanie Ramos has been covering the trial and joins us with more. Stephanie, we saw more notes coming from the jury today. What are some of the questions they're asking?
Diane, the jury has plenty of questions. As you mentioned, this is the second day of deliberation for the jury, and in total, the jury has sent 4 notes to the judge requesting different items, asking different questions. Today, they sent 2 notes to the judge, and in that note, they requested to rehear testimony from Harvey Weinstein's main accuser, Mimi Haley. She's a former production assistant. So they requested to rehear her testimony where she laid out both of her sexual assault allegations. They also said they wanted to see any emails written about Haley by Weinstein, and they also wanted a detailed explanation of the 2 charges involving her allegations. So, Diane, all of this tells us that basically the jury not only has a lot of questions about the charges and how to understand that complicated verdict sheet, but they also have a lot of questions about the accuser's testimony.
And Stephanie, I know they also asked for a readback of testimony from actress Rosie Perez. What's the focus there?
So that request was in the 4th note, and they asked for a lot of different materials, but they did request to rehear Rosie Perez's testimony. She claimed while she was on the stand that Sopranos actress Annabella Sciorra, one of Weinstein's accusers, confessed to her about the alleged rape back in her New York apartment in 1993. Now, her case is too old to prosecute, but her testimony still carries a lot of weight. Now, the jury also asked for copies of all digital written communication between Weinstein and Paul Fescher, a former friend of Sciorra, who says Sciorra told him she, quote, fooled around with Weinstein, but he says she never mentioned the alleged rape. Now, the jury also wanted to see the forensic psychologist's PowerPoint presentation and all written communication mentioning Sciorra and the private investigation firm Weinstein considered hiring to keep track of women accusing him of sexual misconduct. And just as a reminder, Weinstein faces 5 felony counts, 2 counts of predatory sexual assault, criminal sexual assault, and 2 counts of rape. Many of these charges could send Weinstein to jail for the rest of his life.
And so many people want to know what is going on in the minds of those jurors right now. Stephanie, thanks so much for tracking it all for us. And now let's get some legal analysis to help us break it all down. Aida Lyson-Ring is a partner at Barkett Epstein. And Aida, I know you're very familiar with the New York City courts where Weinstein is being tried. What do you make of these notes from the jury?
Well, the jury is doing their homework. They're doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. And this has been a long case. It's been a complicated case. It's a gray area about our understanding of the morphing definition of what consent actually is. However, don't think that every single juror is actually asking the questions on those notes. One note could really be from one individual juror, but because the foreperson is the only designated individual to actually write down the note and give it to the court, we just don't know which way they're thinking.
Okay, and I know that this is really difficult to do, but we're not very patient. So, is there any way to sort of tell how long a jury might take with a case like this?
In a case like this, you'd expect a couple of days at the minimum, but I wouldn't have been surprised if they had a verdict today or not till next week. I mean, we've seen juries deliberate sometimes for 10 days, which is excessive, but it happens.
What stands out to you about this case?
What stands out to me about this case is kind of the blurred lines between conduct that would be something that you would litigate in civil court, like sexual harassment, and conduct that actually qualifies as rape. So I think lay people look at this case and say, well, what he's alleged to have done is really bad. And sure, that may be true, but you have to look at the elements of the offense. And rape in the first degree carries with it 25 years in jail. So you can't just sort of say it's pretty much that. They have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt each and every particular element of that offense.
All right. I know it's going to be a difficult one, and it's a nail biter, and everyone's waiting to see. Ida Lyson-Ring, we appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you.
And we still have a lot more news to report here on ABC News Live. Right now, several are dead in Germany after shooting in 2 locations. We are monitoring this developing story. And the investigation now underway to figure out how a car on a ferry heading to one of the most exclusive islands off Miami plunged into the water, killing 2 people. And the record-breaking spending so far this campaign season, keep in mind, it's only February.
ABC News, straightforward.
The best way to predict the future is to create it. I don't know anybody I've worked with in my career, and I've been hanging around a long time, who does more to create the future than you, Mike.
In tonight's By the Numbers, Mayor Michael Bloomberg is spending at a historic rate on ads and getting creative. The campaign released that digital ad voiced entirely by Joe Biden's prior comments on Bloomberg in 2013. In response late this afternoon, Biden said, quote, "I don't endorse Republicans." In a little under 3 months since announcing his candidacy, Bloomberg has already spent $419 million all on ads. Advertising Analytics reports Bloomberg has spent nearly $339 million on traditional media. The organization also says he has aired at least 4,100 hours of ads. That amounts to 171 days if every ad aired consecutively. Bloomberg's ad spending is already more than the $338 million Barack Obama spent during his entire 2012 re-election campaign. And when we return, 2 married police officers on a date when suddenly an armed robber walks inside the restaurant. We'll show you what happens next. And take a look at this. The patient playing the violin during brain surgery. We'll have more on that shortly. But first, here are some of the top trending headlines right now on abcnews.com.
ABC News, straightforward.
Disgraced former Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich released from federal prison in Colorado 8 years into his 14-year stay. Blagojevich was convicted of trying to sell the former Senate seat of Barack Obama. Blagojevich is one of 11 people to be pardoned or have their sentences commuted by the president this week. Former San Francisco 49ers owner Eddie DeBartolo Jr. also received a pardon, as did former New York City Police Commissioner Bernie Kerik, convicted of tax fraud. The president saying about his right to get involved in criminal cases even if they're ongoing.
I'm allowed to be totally involved.
Democratic presidential hopefuls will face off in their 9th debate. What's new this time will be the appearance of billionaire businessman Michael Bloomberg. Today, candidates spent debate day canvassing the Las Vegas area. Former South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg, former Vice President Joe Biden, and Senators Elizabeth Warren and Amy Klobuchar joining the Culinary Workers Union picket line.
The stakes are high tonight. Sanders is surging in the polls, and his opponents will have to take him on and Bloomberg on the debate stage.
Hundreds of passengers are leaving the cruise ship Diamond Princess after their 2-week quarantine in Japan ended. Authorities today announced new cases of the novel coronavirus on board, bringing the total on the ship to 621, the largest number outside mainland China.
In handcuffs, detectives led Luciano Lewis into court. The 14-year-old now facing a murder charge in the killing of Tessa Majors. Alongside Lewis in court today, 14-year-old Rashawn Weaver. Both teens pleading not guilty to the fatal stabbing of Tessa in Morningside Park. Prosecutors laid out their case, saying video evidence shows the two teens, along with another boy, just 13 years old, entered the park on the evening of December 11th with intentions to rob someone. The 18-year-old Barnard student was walking through the park when police say the teens tried to rob her of her phone. In the end, she was stabbed 4 times, the fatal one to the heart. Both the teenagers, they'll be back in court early April. As far as that 13-year-old, he was processed earlier in family court.
Harvey Weinstein arrived for day 2 of his jury deliberations. Jurors began the day focusing on one of the 2 accusers he is charged with assaulting, former production assistant Miriam Haley. Back to deliberations tomorrow morning. Weinstein faces life in prison if convicted on the most serious charges.
We begin this half hour with breaking news out of Germany. Police there have confirmed at least 8 people have died after a series of shootings in the German town of Hanau, right outside of Frankfurt. Authorities say at least one of the shootings was a drive-by. Right now, a manhunt is underway for the shooters. Police are not commenting on potential motives. We'll stay on top of this breaking story. Now to the latest on the coronavirus. No new countries have reported cases in the last 24 hours. Passengers on the quarantine ship in Japan were finally allowed off, but the Americans on board are not free to return to the U.S. just yet. Meanwhile, American Carl Goldman, a former passenger of the Diamond Princess, is currently in a biocontainment unit at the University of Nebraska Medical Center in Omaha. Clayton Sandell has his story.
This is our greeting team.
When Carl Goldman's evacuation flight from Japan landed in Omaha, he was spiking a fever.
My wife touched me and she knew I was burning up.
Goldman and his wife Jerry were fine when they left the Diamond Princess cruise ship. Then Goldman tested positive for coronavirus, becoming the first patient in a biocontainment unit at the University of Nebraska Medical Center.
The doors are specially sealed, so I kind of feel like I'm a fish inside a bowl.
Tonight, he's giving us the first look inside.
I've got Gatorade in every single flavor.
A pre-existing health issue landed Goldman in the specialized unit, the largest in the country, with room for 10 patients. The air circulates 15 times every hour, filtering out hazardous infections. It was last used to treat Ebola patients in 2014.
There's my nurse in the hazmat outfit. That's a monitor. There's a camera on me, and then double glass everywhere.
In Japan, Goldman's fellow passengers are finally leaving the Diamond Princess amid new questions about a quarantine that failed to stop the virus from spreading, instead turning the ship into a floating incubator, infecting nearly 700 people.
I was so scared of getting COVID-19.
A Japanese doctor who says he talked his way on board says proper procedures and protections were inadequate or ignored.
There was no way to tell where the virus is. No green zone, no red zone. Everywhere could have virus, and everybody was not careful about it.
A Japanese health official insisting while they didn't have 100% separation, they believe the quarantine functioned effectively. With dozens of Americans still coming off the ship, the CDC is now banning those passengers from entering the U.S., unable to return home until they are symptom-free for another 2 weeks.
And let's hear more now from Carl about being in that containment unit in his own words.
Anyone who deals with me, whether it's the doctor, the nurses, they're all in hazmat outfits. I now know what I'm going to wear for Halloween in 2020. I have a window. I'm looking out here on the left. I have windows on the right, but it's all double pane thick glass. The doors are specially sealed, so I kind of feel like I'm a fish inside a bowl. There is, right now, so little is known about the virus. There's no cure. And so I'm not getting any antibiotics, not getting any nose spray. I've been waiting the 2 days just to see if I can get some vitamin C, but they don't want to mess with that at the moment. So the one thing they have been giving me is Gatorade. I've got Gatorade in every single flavor, and I believe when I go home, I'll never have a Gatorade again for many, many months. Good news is my fever broke by the time I came to the hospital. I've been, since yesterday evening, I've been totally free of any fever. I do have a little bit of a dry cough still. That's got to go. Once that's all gone, then they'll test me. If I come out negative, 24 hours later, they'll do another test. If I'm negative with that and then show no more signs, then I'm told I will be evaluated and hopefully will be able to hop on a plane back to Los Angeles.
And Clayton Sandell joins us live from Omaha with more. Clayton, what do we know about the other passengers who were quarantined?
Well, some of them are here. Some of them are at Travis Air Force Base in California. As we know, some of them have tested positive for coronavirus, so they're presumably getting medical treatment until they are better. Others have tested negative, but they will still have to stay in quarantine for 2 weeks until they are showing no symptoms at all for that 2 weeks. And then, of course, there are other evacuees from China, including 57 here in Nebraska that are currently at a military base. Their quarantine is almost up, and they should be able to finally leave tomorrow morning.
All right, at least some of those passengers are going home now, at least. But Clayton, I'm curious how American companies that do heavy business in China are reacting to all of this.
Yeah, it has been tough economically. We've already seen stores like Starbucks, McDonald's shutting down some of their locations across China. They have tried to reopen some of those, but now we're hearing from car makers, including companies like Land Rover, companies like Toyota, who are now running into supply chain problems because some of these factories in China are closed and it's difficult to get parts. So the economic ripples here may last for several more weeks.
Yeah,
Diane?
Definitely a domino effect. Clayton, thanks. And next to that horrifying accident in Miami, 2 women were on board a ferry when the car they were in suddenly plunged into the water. Many are now wondering how something like this could happen. Gio Benitez has more on the investigation.
Tonight, investigators in South Florida are trying to figure out how a car on a ferry plunged into the water, killing 2 women. 63-year-old Emma Afra of Miami Beach and 75-year-old Vivian Brahms of New York, seen here in photos provided to ABC affiliate WPLG, were inside that car. Teams of divers searching the waters Tuesday night, finding the 2 women still inside the sunken 2019 Mercedes-Benz. Both were unresponsive.
I want to know how in the world it got over, and we got to look at the entire operation and make changes to make sure that it's absolutely safe.
Today, ferry workers placed tire chocks in front of cars and urged customers to use their parking brakes. The ferry is extremely popular, used to go across a shipping channel between Miami Beach and nearby Fisher Island.
All right, our thanks to Gio Benitez for that report. And now to a case of unfortunate or perhaps fortunate timing. Surveillance video from Kentucky shows a man attempting to rob a nearly empty fast food restaurant. I say nearly empty because the only 2 people actually eating there turned out to be cops. Our Steve Osunsami reports.
Timing is everything, and for the accused robber seen here by security camera trying to hold up a fast food joint in Louisville, he picked the wrong time. This happened to be date night for Mr. and Mrs. McCowan, seen here enjoying chicken sandwiches last Saturday evening on the other side of this Raising Cane's restaurant. The two are married police officers, out of uniform, but packing heat.
There was literally no question. We just looked at each other. Is this what's going on? Let's go.
With guns drawn, they rushed the counter. The would-be thief, wearing a white mask, runs out the door and drops his gun on the way out. Outside the restaurant, they hold him down until help arrives.
We're trained for those kind of situations, and when it comes to people's lives are in danger, I feel like any other officer here would have done the exact same thing.
30-year-old Justin Carter is pleading not guilty to robbery and other charges.
It is my belief that if not for the heroic actions taken by these two officers, the perpetrator's actions inside the business would have escalated.
Up-and-coming Hollywood rapper Pop Smoke has died after what police say is a gang-related shooting. Police say multiple suspects broke into a Hollywood Hills home this morning and shot the rapper. He later died at a nearby hospital. The 20-year-old was recently arrested in Brooklyn after prosecutors accused him of stealing a Rolls-Royce he borrowed for a music video. New video shows the moment someone shined a laser pointer at a California Highway Patrol chopper in the Bay Area. This is what the pilot saw. Thankfully, autopilot was on, so no one got hurt. Police were also able to identify the suspect from the air and notified cops on the ground who made an arrest. And your eyes are not playing tricks on you. That is a patient in the United Kingdom playing the violin while in the middle of brain surgery. Dagmar Turner wasn't just showing off. Surgeons asked her to play to ensure the professional violinist's musical abilities were not damaged during a tumor removal. Doctors were able to remove 90% of the tumor, and tonight, Turner says that she hopes to be back with her orchestra very soon, wishing her a speedy recovery. And Burger King is out with a new ad, and it seems like a bit of a strange marketing strategy. It shows a moldy Whopper as a way to announce that the fast food chain will no longer put preservatives in their food. Take a look.
24 little hours. What a difference a day made. I know in my heart the difference is you.
All right, joining us now to unpack all that, Anna LePay, director of Real Food. And I'm speechless. I can't even talk right now. A moldy burger. This is creative, is one word for it. What do you make of this?
Yeah, well, it is definitely creative and maybe a little bit gross, but I think it really speaks to the fact that companies of all types, including fast food companies, are hearing this huge tectonic shift in consumer interest of customers of all demographics asking real questions about what's in their food and were there preservatives or additives used in the products that they're eating. So to me, it speaks to a company listening to customers and taking the preservatives out.
Okay, customers may not want preservatives in their food, but they don't want mold in their burgers either. Could this backfire?
You know, that's a great question. You don't want mold in your burger for sure, but you know, I think customers get maybe a little bit creeped out if they realize you could leave your burger with preservatives on your shelf for 6 months and come back and it looks just the same. So I think that it's a clever marketing strategy, but look, I think it's also really important to remember just because there might not be preservatives in there anymore, this is still not health food.
Well, yeah, that's my question. I mean, I know that customers maybe in general don't want preservatives in their food, but Burger King isn't exactly known as health food. Is their clientele super concerned about this?
Well, I've seen the research from industry analysts that look at the fast food industry, grocery retail, processed foods industry, and what they are reporting is that there really is this growing consumer demand of all types. So even customers that, yes, go to fast food restaurants that want fewer additives in their foods and want foods grown without pesticides and certainly want meat raised without antibiotics, for instance. So I do think that this speaks to consumer demand for sure.
Well, and Burger King, we want to point out, also said in a statement that they're removing preservatives because they feel real food tastes better. So could we see a better tasting Whopper at the end of this?
Well, that's that's a question that only a Burger King customer could answer. But I think that it does definitely speak to the company, again, listening. I think the other thing that I've seen Burger King talk about, the real biggest impact, health impact, environmental impact of their food is not the preservatives. It's where their meat's coming from. And they made a commitment last year to look at that supply chain and try to take deforestation out of it. But they committed to doing that in a decade. Hopefully, they might be able to get on that a little bit sooner, along with this decision to take preservatives out.
Well, and could this just be the first in a line of fast food companies that try to embrace this general goal of being healthier and more environmentally friendly?
Yeah, well, we have seen when one company makes a decision like this, changes up their supply chain, it certainly have ripples effects across the whole industry. Again, though, I think the important thing for those of us like me that are advocates for healthier food is to get customers to realize that still fast food is not what we should be eating every day of the week. And we know from the Centers for Disease Control that actually 1 in 3 Americans is eating fast food every day. So we should all be about how do we make sure to encourage people to eat good, healthy food all the time and fast food more rarely.
All right. Anna LePay, Director of Real Food Media. We appreciate it, Anna. Thanks.
Thanks.
And when we return, a journey to one of the wonders of the world. Our Ginger Z travels to Victoria Falls, a place experiencing rapid change as our planet does. And when a hug is more than just a hug, one child's gesture and why it meant more than they could have known. And back now with a
ABC News, straightforward.
We're back now with a live look from Phoenix, Arizona, where the president is set to take the stage for a rally. He's been on the West Coast for the past 24 hours attending a series of fundraisers. This is his first rally since the high-profile pardons and commutations he issued yesterday. Of course, this rally is also being held just before the Democrats take the stage in Las Vegas for their debate. And there are several stories we'll be monitoring here at ABC News Live over the next 24 hours. Roger Stone's sentencing is set to take place tomorrow. Initially, the Department of Justice recommended that the longtime Trump confidant convicted in the Mueller investigation serve 7 to 9 years behind bars. That request was later reversed, creating a firestorm. President Trump stays on the road, attending another campaign rally, this time in Colorado. And Ben Affleck will talk exclusively with Diane Sawyer tomorrow on GMA. It's one of the 7 natural wonders of the world, but there are also entire communities of people that live on its banks. And as our planet continues to change, so do Victoria Falls, affecting both the wildlife and the villages nearby. Ginger Z traveled to Zimbabwe and brought us this report.
The rushing water plummeting 34 stories. The sound and mist heard and seen for miles. And we're heading to an island right in the middle of it all.
So a speedboat is going to be how we get to the edge of the falls. This is the Zambezi River. We are on the Zambia side, and like so many great waterfalls around the globe, the river and the falls separate countries. We're going to go to Livingstone Island, where we can see Zimbabwe. Here we go. This is where we get off. This is Livingstone Island. You've done this forever, right? How many have you lost? Zero. Good morning, America. Here we are in Angel's Pool on the edge of Victoria Falls. That's a 354-foot drop. I don't plan to go over.
Daredevils swimming on the edge.
Doing it for the gram.
To get a great picture.
Well, how was it?
I saw my life flash before my eyes.
But this story is not just about these majestic falls and its voyeurs. It's about the Zambezi River that feeds it, and upstream, the impacts of this latest drought.
Wildlife is really struggling. This waterfall is really a way of purifying the source and sustaining the lives of those who live along its banks.
All through our journey, reminders that the land belongs to the animals. And if the animals are feeling it, the people are too.
What is this village named?
Mukoni Village.
Just a few miles from Livingstone Island, village guide Albina Simalonga gives us a tour and a reality check.
There's much problems like hunger, you know.
So you've seen the hunger?
We saw it, yes.
And this village relies on tourism.
What are these guys doing?
Making animals, different things. Tourism in this village is our main source of income.
The falls are a huge part of the economy here. Tourists poured millions of dollars into the region. So when reports suggested Victoria Falls might be drying up, it was alarming. But we need to listen to the message they are telling us.
The feeling when you get in here is really not fear, at least not for me. It's very peaceful.
The importance of respecting our planet and understanding it.
Talented National Geographic photographer with me here, Nicole Sabecki. And Nicole, we've been talking, and I know that the U.S. and China being number 1, U.S. number 2 right now, are the biggest carbon emitters. But you told me something interesting about Africa.
That's exactly right. Right now, the U.S. and China are the largest emitters. But we have to remember that the historic record for carbon emissions is held by the U.S. Throughout history, we have put more carbon into the atmosphere than any other country. And you have to realize that we're 4% of the population, and we're responsible for somewhere between 1/4 to 1/3 of all global carbon emissions. Wow. If you compare that to where we are right now, 54 African nations making up this vast continent have contributed a mere 4%. Wow. That's a stark contrast. And it's especially poignant when you realize that this is the continent, Africa, that's most at risk for many of the negative effects of climate change.
And carbon emissions being related to climate change.
That's what's warming our planet.
Stunning information here, guys.
Stunning information and stunning pictures there. Our thanks to Ginger Z for that report. And next to a story that shows the power of a hug. Check out the moment when a little boy embraced the pizza delivery man. It was all captured by the Sheely family's doorbell camera. And although that hug is sweet enough, it apparently meant even more to the man behind the pizza box, Ryan Catterson. Catterson's daughter recently died. The 2-year-old boy's mom posted this video on Instagram, and it eventually made its way to Catterson. He said that hug made him feel like his daughter was still there with him. And before we go tonight, we want to leave you with the image of the day. Members of the I Rule dance studio in Beaumont, Texas, struck this pose for the sweetest reason: to honor Black History Month. These fierce photos have now gone viral on social media, igniting the hashtag Black Girl Magic. One of the mothers of the dancers says they are taught that if they work hard, great things will follow. Keep working, girls. You're doing great. And that's our show for this hour. Please stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. We are going to continue monitoring that developing story in Germany. At least 8 people dead in a series of shootings near Frankfurt. An active search is now underway for the shooters, and we will bring you the latest live at 9. I'm Diane Macedo, and thanks for streaming with us.